Well, hello everybody. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to rough in an island sink. Now, island sinks can be difficult because they're kind of out there in the middle of nowhere. They're an island. And you have to figure out how to vent it because there's no walls or pillars or columns or anything to get your pipes up and out through the roof. So you got to be a little clever. Now, the old way of doing it is called a circuit vent or a loop vent. People call them different things depending on basically where you live. Now, as you see, it comes up and over and then runs over and vents up through the wall. Now, most of your piping is going to be down in your crawl space or under a slab. Now, if you're trying to do a circuit vent on a slab, you got to do some thinking there because you're going to have to do most of your piping at that slab stage, the plumbing under slab stage. And then you got to get your rough-in guy involved, and then your trim-out guy is going to come actually put the loop together. But as you see, it comes over and it vents up through an adjacent wall, and then you have to tie your vent back down into the drain so that you have some place for your condensate and your rainwater to go. If you don't tie it back in like that, it'll fill up with water. Now, I've seen a lot of people on the vent side here put a little clean out because there's not really a good way to access it up and around through the loop if it were to ever get clogged. So they put a clean out on it. So that's your circuit vent. Now, the next way to vent your island sink is with one of these little guys. And it's called an air admittance valve, or an AAV. Now, a lot of plumbers like to brand name things. So I've heard this called a Studer vent, an auto vent, and Odie even puts out one. But those are pretty much brand names. And for my videos, I like to use what the code book calls them, and it's an AAV. Now, there are a lot of codes on these. There's a whole column, and it's in section 918 in the International Plumbing Code. If you want to look it up, you can Google those codes, or you could purchase the book. It's on page 81 for me, and it's a nice big column, and it's really kind of confusing to read. But what these guys do is they let air in, but they don't let air out because you don't want the sewer gases and stuff coming up into your cabinet. So it pretty much handles that vacuum or that negative pressure. Once a column of water's traveled through this pipe and is heading down, it'll open up and let that air in. And a lot of times you can hear them open up. But if anything were to put positive pressure on it, it's going to slam shut and not let those gases come up into your house. Pretty neat thing. Now, the manufacturers will tell you that you can put air admittance valves on the whole house. And that might work, but there's also a thing in the code book that says you have to have at least one vent going up through the ceiling. So remember that. Now, there's two different ways to do this. There's a stack vent and a branch vent, and this is kind of an example of a branch vent. Now, you have to be 4 inches above the weir, the trap weir here. So that would be where the water's traveling through your trap here. And we've got a good 4 inches, good bit more. This setup is what we would do on one of our slab homes, where this is going to be in the knee wall, and there'd be a cabinet here. And then your trim guy is the one who's going to cut these stub outs and actually put this stuff on. Now, I prefer to be a little bit higher, and there is a code, part in the code that says they want you above the drain elevation. And there is actually a part in the code that says they want you 6 inches above the rim elevation, the overflow rim, which is the top of that sink. But you're not really going to do that here in this application. And it really depends on where you are as far as what state, what county, what those inspectors are looking for. And for us, as long as we're 4 inches above that weir elevation, we're okay. But when I do mine, I like to try to keep them up higher. Now let's talk about laying this thing out. Now, we have some standards. And of course, you got your water line here, and I've already put my little valves on. And a lot of people, you might be wondering, well, what's the second one? Why you got 2 hots over here? And typically we wouldn't come out, stub out with the red. It would be white like this one over here. I didn't rough this one in, some of the students did. But let's see what they got on their measurements here. Yep, the drain's supposed to be at 14, and the Studer vent stub out is supposed to be at 17, but they got 17 and a half. More on a vent is okay. And then your water lines, these should sit at 20. And this is just what works best for us. I mean, we've been doing it for a while. We put these two at 20, and we generally go 4 inches apart here, but they've got close to 10, and that's a little much, but it works out okay, especially if you're using a faucet that already has supply lines made onto it. And then we drop down another 4 inches, and we put this one for the wash machine on here. You want hot water going to your wash machine. And that's pretty much it when it comes to rough-in. Now, if this was a crawl space, we'd have that pipe poking right up out of the middle of the floor, and this setup would be a little bit different, where we'd have a lav tee, which is a 2 by inch and a half sanitary tee, and it'd just be sticking up with that air admittance valve on top of it, and then this trap and stuff, that's going to be on the trim out. But that's pretty much on the rough end. You'll do it for a while, you'll figure it out. You don't want your drain too low, and you don't want your drain too high where it's interfering with your garbage disposal or your in-outlet waste. But that's pretty much it. I hope that was informative. I'm probably going to have to do a whole video on air admittance valves, but we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.